up guys? Welcome to another do-it-yourself homeowner video. So today I'm going to be putting up trim around this kitchen window right here. You can kind of see down here I have trim already put up. I've actually gone through and had to put up trim all around the house because our contractor who bailed on us left that off. So before we can paint, we needed to trim up the windows. So I'm going to show you how I trim it. I went to Home Depot and got some of these 4-inch pine exterior trim boards here. And so all I did was I went around, measured the edges of the window, and it's going to be pretty simple. I'm basically just going to make a box all the way around. But you'll see I'm going to start down here in the bottom, make sure this is not level to the ground, because a lot of times these windows are not quite level depending on obviously if the house is settled or how good your contractor was. And so you want to make sure the trim is level with the window. Otherwise, you're definitely going to know that it's off. So I'll level it down here and then put up trim on either side right here. I have some stucco anchor screws that I'm going to be using to put through here. Now, I don't know if that is the right way to do it. You can let me know. It's probably a different way to attach it to stucco, but this is the best way that I've found. I'll also put a little bit of sealant or caulk into the holes before I put the screws in, just to make sure it's weather sealed and you're not going to get water running into there. All right, now that I have all my boards cut to the right length, the nice thing about this window right here is it's totally square, so it makes it really easy. I just cut all the pieces the same size. I'm going to go in, I have my miter saw right here, and I'm going to go in and cut 45-degree angles on all of the corners. That way they fit together nice and neat, kind of like these. Sorry, don't mind all the wood putty up there. They weren't quite even, so I had to add some wood putty in, and then I'm going to sand it down so the edges are smooth, or the corners are smooth, before I go in and before we go in and paint it. Now, something I learned the hard way is when you're going in to decide what angle to cut it on, make sure to check out all the ends of the board, because sometimes when you're cutting it, it might chip the board or the paint or something on the edges. And so when you're going to cut a 45-degree angle, you're going to be able to save or get rid of some of that board that maybe is cracked. So look at all your edges first and determine what corner of the board you want to keep and what corner of the board you want to get rid of. So right here, you can see it's kind of chipping a little bit around there. So I'm going to cut my 45 here, and then same thing on this side, cut it right there. Now that I have the boards cut, I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes for the stucco screws. And I'm also going to countersink them. That way I can stick them all the way into the board, put wood fill over top, sand it down, and when I paint it, you won't see any of the screws. So just to give you guys an idea, here is the anchor screws. I guess it's backwards, huh? So anyway, I'll put a link in the description. It's got them at Home Depot. They're stucco anchor screws, 3/16 by 1.5 inches long. Nice thing is they come with the cool masonry drill bit, which is the perfect size for drilling into your stucco. You can see them right there. So I have 2 drills. I found 2 drills works a lot better than having to keep switching out the bit. So if you have 2 drills, have different bits on them, makes it a lot quicker for different things. So I have a 5/16 bit on this one for making the main hole for the screw, and then I just have a 1/2 inch hole bit on here, or whatever you call this guy, to be able to make the room to countersink the screws into the board. And there you have it. Little hole countersunk for the screw. Something I learned when using this hole bit right here, or hole drill bit, whatever you call it, is that the easiest way to get it to bite and to cut out is to actually wiggle it back and forth gently as you're doing it. I don't know if that's a trick that all the pros know, but I know trying to push it just straight in like a regular drill takes a lot of work, whereas if you just put light pressure on it and then slowly wiggle it back and forth, it'll grab and cut. So before I put the trim along the bottom, I wanted to show you this cool little jig that I made. Now it sounds complicated, right? You see these guys on social media all the time, like, oh, make a jig, makes it way easier. It actually does. So all this does, it allows me to space out the trim perfectly along the edge of the window. So all I did was took 2 pieces of wood like that, I laid one on here, the other one right there, and then I just drilled the two pieces together. And that way I know wherever I go along the window, the trim on the outside is going to be the perfect distance from the window. So for example here, instead of trying to line it up and just kind of eyeball it along here, I can take my little jig, put it on there, and I know as long as that trim is pressed right up against there, it's not only level with the window, but it's also the perfect distance from the edge of the glass as well. Now, something you have to pay attention to is these pieces of wood oftentimes are not straight. So there is going to be some finessing, a little bit of eyeballing to make sure, as you can see right here, it's way off, right? So the board is warped a little bit, so when I screw it on, I'm going to have to bend it up a little bit to get it to fit properly. So because I know the board is a little warped, I'm going to actually put in the center screw first. That way I know the center is perfectly spaced, and then from there I'll be able to drill the holes for the other sides of the board to get it spaced properly there. Now, I know it is a little intimidating drilling into the side of your house like that, but believe me, it gets easier the more you do it. All right, so now that I have those drilled, I'm going to take this screw out, put a little exterior caulking in those holes, and then screw it on. As you can see there, I had to push up on this end a little bit as I was screwing it in since the board was warped. But now that I have the screws in, it holds it nice and snug against there. Something I did learn early on is once you get the sides on, it's always best to test fit that top piece first, just to make sure if these are, warped at all, you want to make sure that you get the screw holes just right so that top piece will fit in and line up with your top edges right there. It's always better to check first before you drill, just to make sure everything is going to fit the way it's supposed to. So you can see that piece fits pretty nicely up there. Something to keep in mind is when you're cutting, even though I marked where I thought I was going to need to shorten this top piece, I didn't cut it all the way there at first. It took me 2 or 3 times to get it down to fit like that, which was good because the mark that I made, if I had cut there originally, it would have been too short. So I've had that multiple times where I mark it where it should be and I cut it and then the board's too short. So always better to it's always better to cut it a little bit longer at first and then slowly work your way back little by little, because you can always cut more off, but you can't put more back on. So now let's get these trim pieces attached here. Happens, right? I want to put wood glue on the joints just to give it a little extra, little extra holding power. And I already put that one on, so I'm gonna have to take it off and then put the wood glue on. Gosh, darn it, not gonna take that long, but still, it kind of sucks when you have to undo your work and then redo it. All right, now that I have the trim all up, I'm gonna go ahead and use some wood filler, and I'm gonna fill in any of these corner edges that are not level, and that way I can sand it down and also fill in all of those screw holes right there. That way I can paint over them and you don't even see they're there. All right, now that I have wood filler in everywhere, I'm gonna go ahead and caulk all the edges. Something that I learned on all the YouTube videos that I watched is that when you caulk, you wanna caulk all the edges, right, except the bottom edge right here. You wanna keep this open, and that's in case there is any water that leaks in behind the trim. You want it to be able to come out underneath here and not sit behind the wood and absorb into the wood like that. So I'm gonna caulk this side edge, top edge, other side, and then all around the inside of the window there. Something you want to make sure is these are these little weep holes here on the window. They're on either side. You want to make sure not to caulk over those because you want the window to be able to let any water out that gets into the window frame. All right, so you can see here, I'm almost done. I have all the inside of the window caulked and the outside. I just wanted to show you a little technique that I kind of came up with. I'm sure other people have used it too, but you see all this excess caulk that is along here. Now it's actually gonna dry clear, so it's not too big of a deal, but you're still gonna see all this extra stuff. So, little toothbrush, get it wet, and just kind of brush it into the crevices on the stucco. That way when it dries, it's not gonna be as noticeable as having all this extra gunk sitting on it. So if you look up close, you'll still be able to see it. It'll definitely be something there, but we're actually gonna paint our stucco after we're done here with the trim. So I'm not too concerned. I just don't want the texture to be all weird because it has caulk in it. So there you go. It's gonna blend in, I think, pretty well, but you know, not a professional, just a homeowner. All right guys, so here it is. We finished the trim on the kitchen window. We also got trim on the rest of the house. A couple of things to remember. You can see here, everything looked nice and smooth when I was putting it up, but you can see there's some issues. You can see the board's not quite smooth, so make sure to sand your boards, even if they look good when you got them at Home Depot. Really look at and make sure to sand down any imperfections, because as you can see here, all these little divots and stuff, they show right through, even with multiple coats of primer and paint on there. Also, when you're filling in your screw holes from where you attach your trim to your stucco, make sure to use either wood Bondo or just like the regular, a standard Bondo recipe, because using wood putty, they're really deep holes and big, and they don't dry very well, and you can see that there are some places where they kind of pulled away from the edges. So you can definitely see where some of the holes are. I mean, stepping back, you can't see anything, but when you get up close, you can definitely see some of the imperfections and stuff. But I think for doing it myself, I'm pretty happy with it. Definitely, you know, first time putting trim up. So any professionals out there, let me know what I should have done differently to make it turn out better, because trim, I'm definitely gonna be putting up some more trim. I'm gonna be doing trim inside here in a little bit. I gotta put trim along the cabinets in the kitchen, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, let me know any questions you have, comments, give me a thumbs up if you found this video educational or entertaining. And so anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining me.